Good evening, welcome. My name is Vuyo. It is my pleasure to be part of this discussion. And of course, the deliberation is about the role of leadership for Africa's recently discovered oil and gas resources.
It becomes imperative that a school like this is highly positioned to be a space to engage and dialogue on issues that relate to the continent. And I'm very happy today that we are addressing the issue of oil and gas.
I'm going to ask from African International Advisors, Hasnain Ibrahim, to just come and share some thoughts about this and where things have gone. Let's give him a warm...
We all would love to see Africa fulfill its promise. We all would love to see Africa come true and unleash the potential that we all know it has. We all know it has. But critical, absolutely critical to this, is the role of ethical leadership. And we believe that there are three fundamental drivers, three broad trends that is driving this positivity, that is driving this optimism. And that is, the underpinning of it all is this improvement and this movement towards political stability, this movement towards improving policies and governance. And that underpinning really enables, for one, improvement, overall economic improvement, coupled with the demographic trends that we are seeing. And the overall trend is the rise in the African middle class. And this trend precipitated or gave rise to significant real economic growth. And at this moment in time, going forward, Africa is the only continent, Africa together with India, are the only places where this trend is expected to continue. From a mining perspective, Africa has always been a powerhouse. However, there is such upside potential for mining alone that we sincerely foresee, or we have real reason for optimism for Africa in the near future. And the underpinning of all of this is a tendency towards resource nationalism. Now, resource nationalism really shouldn't be viewed in a negative manner, because we will show later on that there has been certain instances across the world really where resource nationalism has been quite successful. Now onto the specifics around the oil and gas industry. The trend here is quite clear. E&P activity has increased dramatically over the years in Africa. I mean, South Africa, believe it or not, the whole coast of South Africa, really at this moment in time, all of the oil majors have owned the blocks off the coast of Africa, and people are actively exploring for oil and gas across Africa at this moment in time. And the result of this is the largest new field resource discoveries in the world last year occurred in Africa. Africa will become an integral part of the global energy mix. But what we're seeing is this will be more so for gas. Africa is in a position right now where, if responsible and ethical leadership is followed, we could be in a position, we could see significant transformation.
Let's just simplify it. No rocket science. There's just four concepts that I want to talk about when we're talking about ethical leadership. One is responsibility. Responsibility. We just need to be responsible. It's as simple as that. The second one is honesty, or if you like it, integrity, which is a bigger concept than honesty. But there's a second one, honesty. It's very important that we need. The third concept is very simple, fairness. We just need to adopt this whole principle of fairness, what it is, and we'll unpack it a little bit. And finally, respect. And it's very important. So, four things: responsibility, honesty, fairness, and respect. Then I'll sit down after talking about it. I'll unpack each one of them. Let's go to the first one. I think if you look at the first bullet point there's three words I want to emphasize: responsibility, accountability, and sustainability. We just need to make sure that we hold ourselves. And I'm talking now us as business leaders who are going to be going out into the continent and actually extracting these resources, and are actually involved even right now. And some of you are aspiring to be there, is to be responsible. and accountable with all your actions in what you do, and making sure that you use the resources of your organization for that purpose. And obviously, you've got shareholders that needs a return, and you want to maximize that, but in a sustainable way. And finally, we need to make sure that we look after the environment, and we need to be responsible about that, because if we don't take care of the environment, we're going to destroy the future of our generation. And I use this term many times whenever I'm speaking about this subject, that it is incumbent upon us as business leaders particularly to make sure that we do not live on the overdraft of our future generation. That's critical for us to accept that principle. The second one is obviously the most challenging one in our continent. It's just honesty, it's downright honesty. I think as business leaders we need to take a stand as we're going to go into this journey to emphatically reject all forms of dishonesty. Fairness is basically, you know, it's critical that you make sure that you treat other people the way we would like to be treated in similar circumstances. That's a golden rule on that. But fairness is just not only just an easy idea. It simply says when you make a decision, what is it that influences you? Is it the policy of the company, or is it the strategy, or is it based on facts, analysis, not on some emotional, kind of irrational emotion and or prejudices? That's very important that we inculcate that in our lives, particularly as business people. And in that way, we will be able to be fair in all our dealings. By respect here, I mean really respect of human rights and dignity. And we have experiences in multinational companies where human rights in host countries are supported, but somewhere else child labor or anything like that is used because it's not in that country, in their home country. That we cannot afford. And we need to inculcate this kind of thinking. It's critical for us to do that.
The idea is really to contextualize the club of state activism within what is currently called resource nationalism. The idea of an activist state, a radically activist state, the idea of freezing privatization was first mooted quite forcefully in the 2002 conference. The 2007 conference simply added details. It can either own or control. It doesn't have to be total ownership, 51%. It can exercise control through a number of ways, such as regulation. It can extract a lot of tax, higher taxes, for instance, resource rent tax we hear people talk about, and also ensure that these resources are used towards national development. Or people get surprised when they hear that, in fact, state ownership is practiced in such civilized and peaceful countries as Norway and Sweden, Australia, settler colony of sort. So the idea then that one seeks to underscore is that when one speaks of state activism, one need not necessarily invoke chaos. But here is a dilemma. The West continues to demand South Africa's raw material. If obviously Africa were to industrialize, the volume of raw material to the West would be limited. So the question has become, or has come up, whether or not the West shares Africa's vision of industrialization. It benefits Western countries to keep Africa as a supplier of raw material and also as a market for manufactured goods. So the idea, therefore, of states, or rather resource nationalism, admittedly has been loudest. Even though it's a global phenomenon, it has been loudest in Africa. Loudest in Africa because Africa has the largest reserves of this material. Discoveries continue to be made in Africa. A lot of minerals are yet to be discovered. Resource nationalism really is a variation of nationalization. It is a way of reclaiming sovereignty, especially in the former colonial world. Everyone familiar with history will know that nationalist struggles were about reclaiming the country, not only the right to vote, but also resources You would be familiar with the phrase or the chant, Maibuya Africa. Africa is related. And that did not necessarily mean name changes or the right to vote, but it also meant land. We continue in this country to have a very heated debate about land ownership. So the idea is to use your mineral resources, therefore, as a catalyst towards industrialization, and obviously with the hope that you will create employment and welfare for your people. But the question is whether, perhaps a question meant for Mr. Kodongwane, whether we do have a leadership that can implement this. Do we have a leadership, a patriotic leadership that is committed to national development? Or do we have an elite that seeks rents from expatriate capital? Do we have a government, a leadership, that is committed to its own resolutions of growing an indigenous business?